What if morality isn't a code, but a costume, worn by those in power, not to guide their actions, but to shield them from judgment? In July 2025, during a Coldplay concert in Massachusetts, a kiss cam captured Bryon, then CEO of Astronomer, kissing Kristin Cabot, the company's chief people officer. It was a brief, quiet moment, but within hours it set fire to social media. Both were married. Both held positions of authority. And Kristin Cabot wasn't just any executive. She was part of Boston's historic Cabot family, a name woven into the fabric of old American aristocracy. Within days, Bryon was placed on leave. By the end of the week, he had resigned. Cabot, despite public backlash, remained in her role. For some, it was a personal scandal, nothing more. But for others, it was a fracture in something larger, the illusion of elite integrity. It raised uncomfortable questions about leadership, accountability, and the thin line between public virtue and private entitlement. This isn't a video about infidelity. It's about the quiet collapse of moral authority in high places. It's about why people in power often seem untouchable, whether Bryon's fall was just one man's mistake or a symptom of a deeper cultural decay. And most of all, what happens when morality isn't rooted in principle, but in privilege. Let's begin. In the wake of the viral kiss cam moment at the Coldplay concert, Bryon was swiftly placed on administrative leave by Astronomer. Kristin Cabot, his colleague and fellow executive, remained in her role. Neither had broken any law. There was no official policy cited, no internal complaint filed prior. The company's public statement was vague but telling. The standards were not met. Not laws were broken. Not ethics were violated. Simply standards. Whose standards? That was left unsaid. This language signals something crucial about modern elite morality. It is not built on universal ethical principles. It is built on perception. Jean Baudrillard, the French philosopher and cultural theorist, warned of this long ago. In his theory of simulacra, he described a world where representations replace reality, where appearances are no longer copies of something real, but stand-ins for a truth that no longer exists. We live in a world, he wrote, where there is more and more information and less meaning. In elite institutions, morality functions much like branding. It's not about what is right, but about what looks right. Leaders must appear ethical, not necessarily be ethical. The performance becomes the product. Bryon, by all public accounts, was a high-functioning CEO. Kristin Cabot came from a legacy of New England aristocracy, the Cabot family being central to Boston's so-called Brahmin class. These names carry cultural weight not because of ethical distinction, but because of historical polish. And in such circles, morality becomes part of the persona, something to be curated, maintained, deployed, but rarely examined. The moment that facade cracks, when a private action becomes a public spectacle, what unravels is not just personal discretion. It's the entire illusion that virtue was ever the foundation in the first place. This isn't a matter of good people making a mistake. It's about the hollowing out of moral identity until only image remains. And this is how privilege reshapes morality, not by rejecting it outright, but by converting it into something ornamental, something cosmetic, something that protects rather than guides. When your moral code is shaped by privilege, not principle, it often shifts from values to optics, from inner compass to outer control. So we return to the question, what happens when your moral identity is just good lighting, careful PR, and centuries of inherited polish? For the elite, the answer is often simple. It works until it doesn't. If you're drawn to questions like these, if you're tired of being told what morality looks like and want to ask what it actually is, then subscribe. This channel isn't about outrage, it's about excavation, and what we're digging through is real. The scandal surrounding Bryon may look, at first glance, like a personal lapse in judgment. A CEO caught in an affair, placed on leave, later resigning. Case closed. But to stop there would be to miss the deeper story. Because this isn't just about one man's failure, it's about the pattern behind it. Shortly after the kiss cam footage went viral in mid-July 2025, former employees of Astronomer began speaking out. In a now viral TikTok, one ex-employee accused Bryon of ruining careers and cashing out, while others paid the price. According to reports in India Times and Economic Times, more than one insider described a culture where favoritism and manipulation allegedly thrived beneath the surface of public professionalism. These accounts, while not litigated in court, point toward a troubling consistency, not just in this case, but in dozens like it across corporate America. Charismatic leaders, often shielded by prestige and performance metrics, accumulate power unchecked. They shape culture in their image, and when things collapse, the language used is always the same: isolated incident, temporary error, one bad apple. But philosopher Michel Foucault had a different theory. In Discipline and Punish, he argued that institutions are not neutral. They don't simply enforce rules, they manufacture visibility. They control what is seen and what is hidden. Power doesn't just protect itself, it structures reality around itself. In elite environments, this often plays out as ethical containment. Problems are reframed as PR issues. Complaints are recast as misunderstandings. The system is built not to challenge authority, but to preserve it. And so what looks like individual moral failure is frequently the result of a culture designed to tolerate it until exposure becomes too costly. This is why stories like Andy Bryon's feel eerily familiar, because they are. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Capitol Hill, the elite don't just operate within broken systems, they benefit from them, and that benefit often includes a grace period for misconduct, an invisible buffer zone where morality is flexible, as long as optics are stable. So was Bryon's downfall just one man's error, or a ripple in a larger ecosystem that rewards charisma over character, output over ethics, and loyalty over truth? When institutions are built on the image of integrity rather than its practice, it's not surprising when someone eventually cracks that mirror. The only surprise is that we keep pretending to be surprised. One of the most revealing aspects of the Andy Bryon scandal wasn't what happened, it was what didn't. Despite a viral video, internal scrutiny, and widespread media coverage, Kristin Cabot kept her job. And while Bryon did resign, it wasn't until after the story gained national traction. There were no formal charges, no internal misconduct allegations made public, only the language of company standards and reputational review. This outcome isn't unusual. In fact, it's systemic. According to Times of India, Kristin Cabot's familial ties to the Boston Brahmins, America's old money elite, weren't just symbolic, they were protective. The Cabots are considered one of the first families of New England, with historical wealth and deep-rooted influence. In cultures of inherited prestige, consequences tend to move slower, if at all. It's not that accountability is impossible, it's just optional. This is why powerful individuals often escape the full weight of fallout. The structures around them, corporate boards, legal counsel, PR teams, and social capital, are engineered not just to manage crises, but to absorb and diffuse them before they become existential threats. It's a kind of moral insulation, born not from innocence, but from access. As philosopher Immanuel Kant once wrote, act in such a way that you treat humanity, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means. Yet, in elite environments, people, employees, relationships, even ethics, are often treated as tools. Tools to protect the institution, tools to delay judgment, tools to preserve the image. And this isn't a new problem. A 2021 report from Stanford's Closer Look series found that executives involved in misconduct face inconsistent disciplinary outcomes, with leniency often correlated to company size, investor influence, and public image. In short, the more visible and powerful you are, the more likely you are to be shielded. So when we ask, why do people in power so often get away with unethical behavior? The answer isn't just individual, it's architectural. The system is not neutral. It's designed, layer by layer, to favor preservation over principle. If you haven't subscribed yet, and this is the kind of truth you believe needs to be exposed and examined, not with rage but with reason, hit subscribe. Let's keep asking the hard questions no one else wants to. The moment wasn't dramatic. It was barely 5 seconds long, a kiss cam at a Coldplay concert, capturing Bryon and Kristin Cabot mid-embrace. But in that instant, something broke, and it wasn't just the illusion of marital fidelity. It was the mirror. In elite circles, image is everything. And for people like Bryon and Cabot, powerful, educated, pedigreed, morality functions as a mirror, constantly polished for others to see. They speak in values. They promote company culture. They sit on panels about ethical leadership, but behind the glass is something far less curated. Astronomer's response said it all. The company never claimed a policy was violated. Instead, they released a statement saying the standards were not met. This vague phrasing reveals the game. There is no fixed ethical line, only a set of social optics that, when disrupted, demand action. Not because the act was immoral, but because it was visible. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that the greatest corruption is not evil, but the appearance of goodness used to cover it. They muddy the water, he wrote, to make it seem deep. In this case, the water was clear. The scandal didn't reveal criminality, it revealed emptiness behind the performance. The kiss wasn't the scandal. The real scandal is that for so long, no one questioned the roles these people played, the scripts they followed, the reputations they wore like armor. When that mirror shattered, it didn't expose a villain, it exposed a vacuum. Because once the image collapses, once the lighting, legacy, and language can no longer distract, you're left with the raw machinery underneath, power protecting power. Influence resisting consequence. Institutions scrambling not to do what's right, but to look like they did. And maybe that's what's most unsettling, that morality at the top has become less about truth and more about timing, less about accountability and more about optics management. What shattered wasn't just a public moment, it was the illusion that those who lead us live by the same rules they write. Let's not look away. So what have we seen? That in the world of the elite, morality isn't always lived, it's often performed. That Bryon's fall wasn't just personal, it was predictable, part of a culture built to protect image over integrity. And that when your values are shaped by power, not principle, truth becomes fragile, and eventually, it breaks. We didn't make this story dark, we just refused to keep it polished. If this made you think, if it disturbed you in the right way, there's a deeper question waiting. Are we inherently evil? Watch next.